If you really want to level up your fly fishing skills, whether you're a brand new beginner or you've been doing this for a while, one of the best things you can do is chat with and learn from other anglers who are in your exact situation. Sure, guides, outfitters, and other industry experts have a lot of knowledge to share, but it's not always dialed into your specific needs and situation. Today on Untangled, we're going to try and fix that. This is the first episode in our brand new Everyday Angler series where we sit down and talk with anglers who are at every stage of the fly fishing journey. The folks who don't do this for a living or maybe have limited time to be on the water, but they still love this sport and want to be the best angler they can be. Our first guest is Riley Bayles, an angler from Utah who's been fly fishing for about 2 years now. Me and Alex, my partner here at VFC, had the opportunity to fish with Riley for a couple of days this summer. I was struck by how eager he was to learn, his willingness to try new tactics, and of course, how much he loves fishing dry flies. On top of that, Riley really impressed me with his well-rounded knowledge and approach to fly fishing. He's the kind of angler that a lot of us, myself included, can learn from. So, without further ado, here's the first episode of our Everyday Angler series. This is Untangled, fly fishing for everyone, presented by Ventures Fly Co. Hey everybody, welcome to it. This is Untangled, and I am your host, Spencer Durant, joined by the increasingly patient Riley Bayles, not Bales. How you doing, man? Good. Yeah, we've had a few recording snafus this morning trying to get this podcast underway, but we're soldiering on for the content, right?
Yeah.
What drew you to fly fishing in the first place? What made you say, all right, I gotta figure this out?
It was first time I ever tried fly fishing. It was fun. I enjoyed myself. It was fun. Caught a little teeny tiny fish, but it didn't spark anything crazy, right?
How big was the fish?
I mean, it was this big.
Man, that's bigger than the bluegill I caught last week.
Fair.
I managed to catch a bluegill that was that big.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I saw that. You put it on school.
Oh, anyway, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. And so growing up, I have family that fly fishes, a bunch of my uncles, a bunch of my cousins. And it was kind of intimidating to ever try it. And so I just didn't. And then my brother-in-law, he really wanted to get into it. And he was like, hey man, I don't know what I'm doing. You don't know what you're doing. Let's just try and figure it out. And so I went and bought this really cheap, dinky setup. It was $25. It was terrible. Looking back, it was absolutely horrendous, but it got the job done.
Almost all of us start there, I think.
Yeah.
Shouldn't say we all do, but almost all of us do. Yeah.
I think so too, yeah. And so, like I said, the first time didn't really, it was fun, but nothing crazy. And then a week or two later, after that first time, I went out on my own and fished for 8 hours straight and caught I caught a small brook trout and a small cutthroat trout. And I don't know what went off in my brain, but I caught those fish and I just felt so accomplished. I had done something, I had figured something out. And it just kind of sparked this. That really what sparked the curiosity side of things. And then I went out again a couple weeks later by myself to a new river. And I knew they were fishing it. Someone had told me they were fishing it, but I didn't really know what to expect. And I caught a handful of decent sized trout out of that one. And driving home from that, I was like, I have to do this more. And I think it's been, I've consistently fished at least once a week probably since then.
Oh, wow.
Through the summers a lot more, but
yeah,
that's kind of what sparked it.
So was there anything that drew you to it? Did you fish growing up at all, or?
I didn't at all, really. I grew up in Camas, and so we were at the base of the Uinta Mountains. I could have fished every single day growing up.
Yeah.
And I just didn't. My best friend that lived around the corner, I'd tag along with him and his older brother. They got really into just conventional gear stuff. And they would catch, looking back, I remember them catching nice fish while I was with them. But I just never really, it just seemed kind of boring to me, just kind of sitting there and chucking something out.
Yeah.
And like if conventional gear does it for you, great. But just for me, I just never really was interested in it.
So you had this vision in your head of wanting to be the old distinguished guy with the hat and the pipe on the Henry's fork who's telling everybody the Latin names of the bugs that he's using.
Yeah. That's my life goal for sure.
Hey, someone's got to do it.
Yeah.
Why not
someone's
you?
Got to. I think I could pull off the pipe with the
you probably could. You pull the hat off too.
Yeah. For sure, with the mustache.
So 100%. Got to have the mustache.
Yeah.
So, no, that's really interesting because I think a lot of folks who come into fly fishing usually have fished at some point before.
Yeah, I would think so, for sure.
But for you, it was really just your brother-in-law said, hey, let's do this. And then that day you grinded, it was what, 2 fish in how many hours did you say?
8 hours. Yeah.
So that's a grind. That's not easy to do, to force yourself to do.
Yeah.
So that day and then the day after that, when you caught a few decent fish, that was all it took to hook you?
Yeah, honestly, like it was, and I think it was the feeling, and I think this is similar to most, well, maybe a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
The hooking the actual fish was a blast, right? Like hooking into a fish is like that shot of dopamine is awesome.
Yep.
But for me, it was like the problem solving aspect of it. Of like, I didn't know how to read water. And in my head, I showed up to this river and I grew up, playing in the river and swimming and stuff. But in my head, I'm like, I feel like a fish probably would hang out right there. And so I, flip my fly over there. And, and that side of like the problem solving and the puzzle just fascinated me. And it just got me absolutely hooked.
Oh, that's so interesting that it's I think that's what keeps people in it is the puzzle. But that's what hooked you was the puzzle.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. Well, before we talk about tactics and really dive into some of that stuff, while we were out fishing, me and you and Alex, you mentioned that you fished with your wife a little bit. And the way you phrased it, if I remember correctly, and if I'm wrong, let me know. But the way you phrased it was you'll go out and fish with her and she'll fish for half an hour or an hour and she'll get bored or whatever word you used, but she'll just be done. And she'll read her book the rest of the time and you keep fishing.
Uh-huh.
So what's that dynamic like of going out and fishing with your wife? Because I know a lot of folks write in questions to Untangled. They want to hear about how do I teach my significant other to fish? What's that? So what's that like for you guys?
Yeah. So kind of our go-to is, the first little bit she'll fish with me and she'll usually outfish me and then just want to read her book. And luckily she really likes being outside. Like we love camping. We love hiking. We try and spend as much time outside in the summer. Yeah. But yeah, fishing isn't really like her favorite thing in the world, but I think she enjoys it because she sees how much I like it. And I think it's just an excuse to spend time together. As far as like showing her how to do things, it can get tricky really quick. I actually heard I think my uncle told me one time, like never try and teach your spouse to fly fish because you'll just get
I've heard that. And I have told many people that myself too.
Yeah. So it can get tricky. I think for me, it's like, as soon as it gets to the point of frustration, it's kind of like hands off. Like it's kind of like just let her do her own thing. But luckily, like I feel like we're pretty patient people. One of my main motivations for fly fishing is how fun it is.
Yeah.
And so as soon as it becomes frustrating because because I'm trying to teach someone, I'm okay with taking a little step back and stuff, if that makes sense. That's
a really good piece of advice because how many times you ever yelled at your wife while you've been trying to teach her to fly fish?
I mean, I try not to yell. My students maybe have heard me yell a few times, but I don't know if I've ever gotten like super, super frustrated.
Yeah.
But one thing is fishing low stakes, right? So if you're fishing a pond with stocked fish, I think that's a little easier a lot of the time. If you're fishing, high mountain, we fish a lot in the Uintas, and if we're fishing high alpine lakes with small brook trout, like they're pretty willing to take a fly.
So you're not taking her to some tailwater with 20-inch browns and saying, go for it, honey.
No.
Yeah. Okay. No, I just asked that because I know, unfortunately, I've yelled at my wife while we've been fishing because I think the I know. Shake your head. I know. I'm not a great husband.
Shameful.
I'm the first to admit that.
No, I've heard you talk on the phone with your wife and kid. I'm sure you're great.
Oh, we'll see, man. We'll see. I appreciate it. But I know, and it's funny because when I guided, I never expected my clients to read my mind.
Uh-huh.
Because they're my clients. I never expected that. But for some reason, when I take my wife out fly fishing and she doesn't get it, I'm just, well, why don't you get it? You hear me talk about this all the time. It's literally what I do for a living. Why don't you? Well, yeah, she does. But hearing someone talk about it doesn't equate to knowing it.
Yeah.
And I know that's been my biggest thing I've had to work through and remind myself to quit being such a grump is, bro, she can't read your mind.
Yeah.
Why do you expect her to? It's interesting. When people don't have that issue, I always like to pick at that and just discuss it because it's an issue I run into. Other friends of mine have run into it as well. I got one buddy who he will not fish with his wife unless they're with a guide. Because he says it's too frustrating for him. And I think that's a little extreme. I think he might need to work on himself a little bit there. But I also understand where he's coming from at the same time of, yeah, it would be nice to have someone else be the one to teach because on top of that, we don't always listen to our spouses the best either.
Yeah, true.
So I think it's just an interesting dynamic to pick at because it can be tough.
Yeah, and I don't think there's like a right or wrong way to do it, right? Mm-hmm. I'm really lucky. I think my wife is, I just think she's amazing. She's super patient.
Yeah.
But she also has, she's really embraced a lot of the things that I love doing. So I love watching football. And she didn't grow up watching football or anything. And she's kind of embraced watching football. And so I think if we can do that back as well, like some things that she loves, farmers markets, she loves, she's gotten into photography recently. And if I can invest time in that as well, it becomes this mutual, we're just invested in each other's hobbies.
No, that's a really good point to make. I like it. And all kidding aside, right, when you get to get out and fish with your wife and the fishing's good, it's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
It's a blast.
Yeah. I've had that opportunity a couple of times. In fact, even about a month ago, went out. She didn't fish, but I had the baby on the backpack carrier.
Nice.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's a dream there.
Apparently, though, I scared my wife a couple of times. I walked out into a deeper part of the river and it looked like I was going to fall.
Oh, gosh.
Like, no, I'm fine. But apparently she was a little clenched up on the bank while she watched us. But we caught fish. That was awesome.
That's epic, yeah.
The kid, she seemed it was the only time of the hike that she quit crying is when we caught fish. So I just think it was new. She hadn't seen it before, right?
Yeah. That's awesome.
No, that's awesome. Well, let's chat some dry fly fishing.
Okay.
Because when you were out with me and Alex, that's what we spent our time doing because the whole idea behind taking someone out and doing that video with them was we want to help you level up in an area where you want to improve. And you had said you wanted to catch fish on a dry fly that you actively saw feeding.
Uh-huh.
So what is it about dry fly fishing that attracts you to that style of fishing more so than nymphing or throwing streamers or wet flies or whatever else?
Yeah. I think when I think of just traditional fly fishing, what comes to mind is dry fly fishing, right? What attracted me to it, though,
the pipe and the hat, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, back to that.
Exactly.
Yep.
What drew me to it was this one. I think if you can get a fish to break the surface of the water to eat a fake bug that you're like that, the idea of that is just fascinating to me. But also what drew me to it was I got into fly fishing when it was like hopper season. I was just, slapping hoppers around, which is super fun.
Yep.
But also a little, it's way more forgiving. You can twitch a hopper, and the idea of getting like a perfect dead drift with a dry fly, when that's called for, right? That idea just fascinated me.
Yeah.
And so I fished hoppers till the end of the summer into, early fall. And then it was, I basically just started trying to figure out nymphing. And then by the time, the full circle, I feel like I never really had the opportunity to fish into a great hatch.
Mm-hmm.
And so I hear these stories of, there's bugs everywhere and they're flying everywhere and you can't even hardly see. And I just had never experienced that. And so the idea of identifying a fish, watching one come up consistently and being able to trick that fish into eating my dry fly, I felt like I had to do it in order to level up my fishing.
So you've been doing this for 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
and you've never fished into a big hatch where the fish were consistently eating.
Yeah,
Really?
I've seen a few hatches that were kind of sporadic rises. Like I had fished like a midge hatch before, caught a few on a mosquito dry fly, and that was awesome. But it wasn't like I wasn't watching the same fish rise. It was more of like a fish there, fish here, a fish over there. And so I just hadn't really ever had the opportunity to see that.
So do you think that idea of fishing into a big hatch and there's bugs everywhere and the fish are going nuts, is that, and we talk that up all the time in fly fishing, that's held up as the holy grail in a lot of instances. Is that not as common as you were led to believe then, or
I would have to say it's not.
Yeah.
And maybe
selling
it's
you a
just
false bill of goods or something?
Well, and maybe it's just the kind of fishing that I do. Like I tend to fish smaller creeks, and I tend to fish high alpine lakes, and
Okay.
I try to avoid the local tailwater just because there's too many people.
Yes. Yes, there are.
But yeah, like in my head, I felt like eventually I was going to fish into this great hatch, and it kind of never happened. And I was sort of like, shoot, like, do I suck at this, or am I missing something? Like what's the deal here? And so I do think, and I think especially with social media, like you see,
Yes,
people holding up 30-inch browns, and they're, fishing, they walk into a hatch and they film just bugs everywhere. And I think as beginners, we think like, oh, that's what fishing's going to be. And a lot of the time it's not. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Every day. And it's not that way a lot of the time.
Well, I need to add more caveats then when I talk about the dry fly hatches that we get into. I do think you see a fairly decent amount of hatches in the evenings through summer and into fall, though, don't you?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, and that's something that I've noticed too. Is like when I was, especially the first year and a half of fishing, is most of the time I would have time, middle of the day.
Okay,
or it was like I would be able to fish from like 3 to 5 or 3 to 6. Like I just had a few hours where I could go out, and now that I've fished a little bit more, and especially on this trip, I mean, I was like, oh, this is what a hatch looks like.
Yeah.
Like you stay out a little bit later, maybe you get up a little bit earlier. More than likely you're going to stumble into a hatch.
So it's less of I sold you fake goods and more of just not having the timing down, maybe not understanding the timing part of it too.
Yeah, I think that's part of it.
And how important time of the day is in these hatches. Okay.
Well, and weather too. Like if it's like I've noticed like the drizzly days, the blue-winged olives come off a little bit nicer, right?
Especially in the spring.
Yeah. And so that's something that I didn't really, and I had heard that, but when you're in the thick of, going to college or getting married or whatever it is, it's like a lot of the time you only have a couple hours to fish.
Yeah, you can only go when you can go, and you got to make the most of it. Yeah, exactly.
And so that can get kind of tricky to find some hatches.
Yeah. So no, that's just so interesting because that's a big part of what drew me to it as well was the hatches.
Yeah,
and that's why I love dry fly fishing so much. But then I'm also extremely lucky. I get to get into a lot of these hatches too. So no, that's interesting that was the experience you had because, those hatches they are just they're so much fun to fish when you get into a hatch like that. But then they also will make you feel like you don't know what you're doing
100%.
More so than anything else.
Yeah.
I think it's really like, and I know what's the hardest part then because you got into that hatch with us.
Yeah.
Where we were out there and what bugs were coming off those days that we fished? It was caddis a little bit.
And we were seeing some yellow sallies. And then there were the March brown mayflies. And then there were cicadas hatching too. So you had a lot to pick from. Yeah.
So when you get into a hatch like that, what's tough about that?
I mean, it's for me the overwhelming feeling of like there's 4 different bugs just that we can see.
Yes.
It's like, where do we even start there? And then it's like you got to pick the right fly, and then you're worried about presentation. But I think the yeah, I think the hardest part when multiple bugs are coming off is figuring out what the fish are actually eating. Because just because the caddis are bouncing around doesn't necessarily mean they're keyed in on the caddis. Yeah, so that can get tricky. That was tricky for me for sure.
So how do you figure that out then? Because I know that's a question we hear all the time here at VFC is I go out and yeah, maybe it's early summer and there's a lot of bugs out because that's when you do have a huge variety of stuff hatching.
Yeah.
How do you decide which one to tie on at that point? What's your process?
So one thing that I learned from you guys is that I'm just like I've tried to implement in my everyday fishing is just sitting and watching.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of the time you don't feel like you have time to sit and watch, but it's always worth it, I would argue. Like if you pull up and you only have an hour, sit and watch for 10 minutes, 5 minutes even. And so that was one thing is just sitting and watching what bugs were actually landing on the water. And then, yeah, that was kind of groundbreaking for me because I'd heard people say that, but it was kind of one of those things where I was like, yeah, but nobody has time for that, right?
Yeah.
But that was huge, was sitting and watching. And then the rise forms too. So one thing that you guys pointed out is, a caddis rise when they're hitting caddis, it's a little more splashy because the caddis are a little more, they're kind of clumsy. Like they're so, yeah, it's kind of funny. So the rises are a little more splashy. And then with like a mayfly, a lot of the time they kind of come up and they sip the mayfly. And that was really interesting to me too, where you could actually see it. If you just pick a spot in the river and you watch the fish rise, you can kind of tell from their rise forms.
Yeah. What they're eating. So yeah. I'm really glad you brought that up because we talk about this all the time at VFC and we didn't powwow before this. I didn't tell Riley to bring that up. That was all organic. But the value of watching and waiting, it's hard to overstate that. But I also think that people assume it's going to be very difficult to spot what the fish are actually eating.
Yeah.
That they'll just skip it.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and I'm so guilty of this where you think something's going to be really hard. The likelihood of it happening is not very high. So you just skip it altogether. I think that's human nature in a lot of ways. And so folks will skip that very important step of watch and wait and learn and see what the fish are actually eating. How hard was it to actually do that for you? Was it as tough as you thought?
I definitely thought, when we first started like watching the rises, I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to tell what the fish are actually eating.
Yeah.
And then I literally watched a mayfly, kind of drift all daintily, land on the water and go for a little bit. And then a fish came up and ate it. And I was like, oh, like that just took me a couple minutes to watch that.
And it was worth it.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Because I would have tied on a caddis, like just seeing all the caddis bounce, because there were way more caddis. That was what was interesting too. Way more caddis than there were mayflies.
And we talk about that being a masking hatch sometimes where the bug that you see the most of isn't necessarily what they're eating. It's what's the most available to them.
Exactly.
And with caddis, especially because they're so flighty, they don't spend a lot of time on the water surface. Yeah. The mayflies spend way more time.
For sure.
So that watch and wait, it's so valuable. I think there's a lot of skills we can talk about that matter the most for anglers, but I think that might be, especially for a beginner, it might be darn near the top.
I would say so for sure. I think you can learn. I learned so much even in just sitting there and we did end up, like Alex and I ended up sitting for a while at one point. And it was almost like, it was really relaxing, but it was also, I learned so much just watching the bugs and watching the fish. It was really
a lot
cool.
of fun. No, I thank you for bringing that up because I think that's a great reminder to all of us is we got to do that because it took me a long time. I was in that same boat where I just get excited. I get to the river. I just want to fish. I'm not going to sit. We're talking about watching. I'm not going to watch. I'm going to fish. And then when you do it, you're like, oh, that's pretty stinking cool. That's why I watch, to watch what the fish are doing and how they're behaving. And were you surprised at where you saw some of those fish rise?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was shocked.
Why?
Well, so I was kind of expecting them to rise. You hear a lot about fish the seams, right? Fish the foam line, foam is home, all that stuff. And most of the fish that we were watching were in riffles, pretty fast riffles too. And riffles can be great. But in my head, I was kind of like, I'll fish the seam right off the bat, and I was shocked at where they, and
how many
shallow
fish
water
were
too,
actually,
like pretty shallow water. Even like barely moving water sometimes. Like it's crazy. They rise everywhere, right? They're everywhere. And so I was very much surprised at how all over the place it was.
So if we hadn't have stopped and watched and waited, you would have skipped water that had fish
for
in
sure.
it.
Yeah, most definitely.
Just another reason to do it, folks. Don't skip it. It's so important.
It's worth it for sure. Yeah.
So with dry fly fishing then, and you've poked at this a little bit, but what's been the toughest part of learning to fish with dry flies for you? What was the part that made you want to like tear your hair out and fish with nymphs instead?
Luckily for me, I don't have hair to tear out anymore. Just my mustache. But yeah. I mean, the simple answer for me would just be presentation. Like I even think of the difference between the first time I tied on a streamer and the first time I tied a dry fly on. And I'm not saying streamer fishing's easy, but I caught a fish first time I tied a streamer on, and I had no idea what I was. I just like chucked it out there and let it swing and caught a fish.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that was cool. First time I tied on a dry fly ever, I had like 57 rejections from the fish. And I was like, what is wrong with me? Like, this is horrible.
It's like back in high school asking a girl to prom.
Yeah. And so the presentation is really tricky, like, especially if you have to get a dead drift.
And sometimes you don't need a dead drift. Sometimes you need it swinging.
Yeah, like,
but not too much because then it doesn't look real, right?
Or like with caddis, sometimes you want a little
bounce
to them. Yeah. It's tricky. And so the presentation, just all of it, like, just, mending, especially like mending with a dry fly kicked my trash. And it's still like, it's tricky for me.
Why?
So mending with nymphs, I feel like is a little more forgiving, especially when you're fishing an indicator. Just because you got way more weight on, right? Like if you have a single, even just like a size 14 parachute Adams, and you have any fly line out, it's pretty tricky to not, to mend and not throw off your drift. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And so that kind of kicked my trash at first too. So Alex was walking me through that.
It's a much lighter movement than you would expect, isn't it?
Yeah. And the less fly line you have out, and this is kind of a no-brainer for a lot of people, maybe, but for me, I was so focused on getting my fly out far enough, but it was like the less fly line you have out, it's so much easier to mend your leader and tip it than it is to mend any fly line.
Yep.
And so even if throwing on a foot or two of tippet to extend your leader, like that is an underrated
Yes, it is.
Skill, I think.
Yep. And it's one of those, like, you can't really practice mending. You just have to do it.
Yeah.
It's one of those, you can practice casting, but practicing mending, you just got to go do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah, presentation for sure.
Yeah. I think that's pretty true for a lot of it. But the nice thing I think too about it is you do end up learning a lot about how to present other flies.
Yeah.
Once you figure out
For
presentation. Sure. I think with any of them, and maybe, I guess, you've had the opportunity to fish nymphs and streamers a little bit.
Uh-huh.
Do you see much correlation between presentation with your dries and the nymphs and streamers?
Tons. Yeah. I think it's kind of it's funny. Like you joke about nymphing, like, oh yeah, nymphing's easy, right?
Yeah. Anyone can do it.
Yeah. But it is one of those things, like nymphing is one of those, I didn't start noticing all the drag that I had on my nymph rigs until I started dry fly fishing.
Yeah.
Where I was like, oh, that's dragging right now. Like that, I'm sure that doesn't look super natural.
Yep.
And then with streamers, streamers is all about presentation, and it's a different kind of presentation, obviously. I would say a lot of the time you want at least a little bit of movement in your streamers.
Yep.
But it helps you. I feel like with dry fly fishing, you're so laser focused on the presentation that it helps you realize with all your other forms of fishing that that's what fishing is all about.
Do you think it helps you visualize the presentation better with the flies you can't see?
I think so, for sure.
Yeah. So that's a concept that I have a hard time figuring out how to teach, whether it's on the podcast or in one of our How We Fish videos, where you can see the dry fly and you can see how it's acting on the water, but you can't see your nymphs most of the time. You can't see your streamers most of the time.
Yeah.
And so you've got to have this visualization of what it needs to look like. And I think if you have that, it's easier to translate that to actually happen on the water. Am I up in the night, or do you?
No, I 100% agree.
Okay.
Yeah. I think dry fly fishing is like you get immediate feedback a lot of the time.
You do.
Right. So it's like, and a lot of the time you can see the fish like look up, and if they
go back
reject
down.
it,
So,
the one that's like, oh,
not today, Durant. Yeah.
With nymphs, it's like you have no idea if they're rejecting your nymphs.
Mm.
Like you can guess, but I think dry fly fishing can help you
Dial that in.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Notice kind of the drag that you have on your nymph rigs or
yet another
anything
reason
else.
why dry fly fishing reigns supreme in the world. No,
Amen, brother.
Oh, all kidding aside, it's just so much fun. It
really is.
And I've talked about this a lot on recent episodes of the show, right? It's do what you enjoy.
100%.
And that's just what it is for me and for you, obviously, as well. It's what we enjoy.
Yeah.
If you were starting over fly fishing today, you're starting brand new, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, all full of optimism. Would you start out learning how to fish with dry flies, or do you think you would start out learning nymphs or streamers or wet flies?
Oh man, if I was starting over,
Yeah.
sounds miserable. Just kidding. No,
it does sometimes, because you think of all this knowledge you have now and what it took to get it.
When the days of just getting your butt kicked, I'm like, oh, I don't want to go back.
Of just being ready to sell everything.
Yeah. Yeah, start golfing or something.
Never doing this ever again. Yeah.
No, I would have to say dry fly fishing. Yeah. Just the amount of, even just the things that I've learned, like we were talking about with presentation, with other things, like it just has made me a better angler. And I think if you can, I also think I would argue dry fly fishing is the most rewarding. And so if you can start out with dry fly fishing, and I'm sure anyone can argue that, whatever. But for me, it's like being able to trick the fish to come all the way up.
Yep.
Like that's pretty stinking rewarding. And then setting the hook correctly, like it's amazing. And so I think if I started out with dry fly fishing and then let those concepts kind of trickle down into my other fishing, I think it would have been, I would definitely do that.
Yeah. I think I'd agree with you. I started out a lot of people learning with nymphs, and I wish I wouldn't have, because I do think dry fly fishing, learning that first has a lot more benefits, I think.
Yeah.
Not that it's better than any other form of fishing. I just think it's got more benefits for the learning process for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think so too.
Awesome. Well, other than listening to this award-winning, excellent podcast and our videos here at VFC, what's been the biggest tip or lesson that's helped you succeed with dry fly fishing?
And
if it's something from here too, that's fine.
Yeah,
all kidding aside, right? That's what we do. We try and teach. But
no, like you guys, like the information that as soon as I started fishing, my brother-in-law was like, dude, I just found these guys.
Yeah.
They teach beginners, and we just started watching everything we could. But I think it's really important to take the information and then go apply it on the river or the lakes or streams or whatever it is. For dry fly fishing specifically, put flies in front of fish and make them look real. Like that, like if you just know that about fly fishing, you can be successful, I think, because it's so easy to overcomplicate things, and it's so easy to get caught up in the newest fly or the newest tactic or whatever it is, where it's like, if you can make that bug look real, you're in for a treat, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that advice of just, learning as much as you possibly can. And that's one thing that I'm like, I have kind of an obsessive personality. I don't really, if I get into something, like I'm all in.
Yeah.
And for fly fishing, it's like, I don't listen to music anymore. Like it's straight podcasts. I got a list of 4 or 5 podcasts that I listen to.
Oh, that's awesome.
And they're just constantly playing.
Yeah.
And the videos, like I don't really watch anything except for fly fishing videos, because it's like I want to learn as much as I possibly can, and then I want to go apply it, and I want to share it with my friends and family.
Oh, that's awesome,
because of how much fun it's been for me.
Well, sweet. So in every other episode of Untangled, we take questions. We like to answer questions from all the listeners and viewers. And we're still going to do that, but I'm going to have you answer them this time.
Oh, boy.
So we're going to do a little rapid fire question round. And I just grabbed some commonly asked questions that we've gotten a lot of recently to go through with you. So, first up, you only get to fish one dry fly and one nymph for the rest of your life.
Ooh.
What are you picking and why?
Can I have different sizes in those flies?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I feel like I'd be silly not to go with the parachute Adams. Because even you pick a big parachute Adams, slap that down, they might mistake it as like a hopper. I don't know.
They might. I fished them in stonefly hatches.
Yeah?
Well, that's all I had in my box.
There you go. So yeah, I feel like I'd probably have to go with a parachute Adams. Nymph.
Of course, we asked the dry fly guy the nymph question. So,
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to not say a zebra midge just because they're so. I mean, you can fish them year round. Yeah, I'd probably have to say zebra midge.
All right, I think that's pretty good for trout fishing. It's going to be tough to beat that combo.
Yeah.
All righty. Would you ever spend $1,000 or more on a fly rod? And why or why not?
I just had this conversation with my wife actually because I was showing her a rod and she's like, that's ridiculous. There's no way. And so I've thought a lot about it and I think, I really don't think I would. I would try and find a discount of some sort.
Yeah.
I don't think I could bring myself to spend $1,000 on a fly rod.
Why not though? It's something you love doing, right?
It is. It's just the $1,000 for some reason in my head. I'm like, I don't know if I can justify that. Unless it got to the point where, shoot, now you're making me second guess myself.
You're welcome.
No, I gotta say no. I would have to spend less than $1,000 on a fly rod.
Okay. So you mentioned earlier though, you like camping quite a bit.
Oh yeah.
Right. So would you spend big money on camping gear?
I probably would.
Yeah.
Because it would benefit my wife and my future kids.
So would a nice fly rod.
That's true.
Because a happy husband is a better husband.
That's true.
And you're going to be happy if you got nice stuff, right?
That's true. Oh, man.
I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I don't really care, right? I'm just curious because there is that big chasm between fly rods these days.
Yeah.
Of stuff that people can actually afford and then the $1,000 plus stuff.
I will say, like, I've casted a $1,000 fly rod before and I was like, man, this is a nice rod. But I also noticed that it had all the fanciest stuff on it.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's like I have an older rod that my granddad gave me. It's probably a $600 rod. And I didn't notice a huge difference between the two.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And granted, I'm still a beginner. But so maybe that would be my answer is I'd rather spend $500, $600, $700.
You don't need all the fancy stuff.
Yeah, I don't need the highest end cork grip and all that stuff.
Well, and it's like Tom Morgan, he used to own Winston and then he sold Winston and started Tom Morgan Rodsmiths before he died. One of the most influential rod designers to ever live. He had a saying, a good fly rod is always a good fly rod.
Yeah.
And I believe that 100%.
For sure.
That the old stuff, like the old Winstons, I've got a big collection of the old Winstons. They're great.
Yeah.
The Sage XP, the old Sages, love those stinking things. They're so much fun to fish.
Yeah.
Because they're just good rods.
Yeah,
right?
And they'll always be good. Like
exactly.
For sure.
They'll always be good. You don't have to spend the big dollars. So, next question. What is your go-to method for keeping your dry flies floating all day long? What's your secret sauce? Because people ask me this question all the time, so I'm curious if you do it differently.
I mean, I don't do anything fancy. Like I use I think it's just Loon, the gel floatant.
Okay.
To start, and then as soon as it starts getting a little waterlogged, I throw it in the dry shake stuff. Put a little more gel floatant on it, and I haven't really ever had a problem. Like if it comes to where I have to snip it off and grab another of the same size, same pattern, and everything, I'll just do that too.
Yeah.
But I feel like the floatant does a pretty good job.
Yeah. I don't ever put gel on mine after the first application of the day.
Oh yeah.
So that's the only thing you and I do differently. Otherwise,
so do you just use the dry shake after?
Yeah. I just dry it off after.
I should try that.
So, because from my understanding, and I could be wrong, but from my understanding, even with the dry shake, the fly is usually too waterlogged for the gel to do too much good. which is why I don't do it
That
again.
explains why I go through a lot of gel floating.
So maybe it does. Yeah, my gel floating lasts a lot longer for me than my powder floating does.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I'll have to try that.
So no, it's
Solid
good
tip.
stuff.
Yeah.
We talk about size, shape, and color being the way to match the hatch here at VFC. It's our right fly formula. We say if you don't know what fly to use, look at what's on the water and then match that based on size, shape, and color. Size is the most important. Color is the least important. However, we had a buddy of ours on the show. Was that earlier this year? I think it was Ryan Kelly, Green River Fly Fisher on Instagram. And he pushed back and he says that shape is more important than size.
Ooh.
He says shape matters more. So what do you think matters the most? Size or shape? Or do you think color matters the most?
I don't think.
In your experience.
So I don't think color matters a ton.
At all or a ton?
I think color can help. Like Purple Haze is one of my favorite flies just because it gives it a little pop. But like it's the same look as a Adams, like as a parachute Adams.
Same flies,
same
different
exact
color.
silhouette, same just a little pop. That's a tricky. I think size. How do I word this? I think shape. I think you could argue shape is more important than size, but I think if you're throwing I don't know. If it's too big, I don't know. It's hard to say whether size or shape is more important. Personally, size is like my go-to of like, if I flip over rocks, if I, scoop things out of the river, size is the first thing that I worry about. I would have to say size.
Yeah.
Just based off of my experience. Yeah.
I don't think there's a wrong answer. I'm just curious about the thought process.
Yeah. And I think shape is really important, but if you have the same shape, the same silhouette, but it's significantly bigger, I don't think it's going to be as effective as if that, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing with Ryan too is he fishes one river.
Yeah. True.
That's it. That's not all he fishes, but primarily he's on one river. And I think on his river, that is definitely true.
Okay.
Because I've been there on days where we've thrown size 12 pheasant tails when everything coming off is a size 20 midge, and we've caught plenty of big fish doing it that way, where you just size up, they can actually see your fly at that point. And then the shape matters, but the size enables them to actually see it. Or the shape. I got those backwards. You know what I was trying to say. I apologize. I've only had half a Diet Coke today, so I'm not firing on all cylinders quite yet. We ran out of Diet Coke here in the studio fridge, so intern's getting fired for that, I'll tell you right now. No, it's a great answer. I appreciate it. Best advice you would give to someone just starting out fly fishing?
Oh, it's just one piece of advice.
Yeah. What's your sage wisdom from 700 and no? Yes, 730. What's 365 times 2, right? 730 days of fly fishing experience.
I mean, I don't know. Like, part of me would want to just type them up, like just don't give up.
Yeah.
Push through. But also part of me would just say like, put flies in front of fish and make them look real, honestly, because it's like,
I appreciate that.
You can go down so many rabbit holes, but if you're just getting started, especially because it can get so frustrating so quick.
Yes.
If you can just focus on doing that, I think, but also having fun. Like that's one thing. If you don't have fun fly fishing, even if you're catching fish and you're like not having fun, like pick a different hobby.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Our rivers are crowded enough. Like, just pick a different thing. Like, if you just get pissed off every time you go out, like, find something else to do. It should be fun. It should be rewarding and
that's a very valid
enjoyable.
Point.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. What is the toughest type of water for you to fish?
Ooh. Toughest? I mean, an eddy. I freaking hate eddies. It was funny. I caught a fish out of an eddy probably last year.
Yeah.
And I posted on the school app and Alex commented and was like, dude, I'm so proud of you. Like, eddies are tricky.
It's been a long running joke between me and Alex here is that eddies are impossible to fish.
Yeah. Like,
he'll have a lot of grief with them. Not to say that I don't, but he has a kind of a personal vendetta against them. And they are tough. They're because the current's going the opposite way.
Yeah.
And so and then you've got a lot of drag opportunity
For sure.
in there too. So it's not easy.
Yeah. I would say eddies for sure.
I get behind that one. And then last one for the rapid fire Q&A round. What was the most confusing thing about fly fishing when you started out?
Most confusing thing.
What made you go, why are they doing it this way? What are these guys on?
I mean, I think the lingo is really confusing.
Yeah.
Like you hear all these, you hear tippet and leader and you hear all the sizes, right? You hear 4 and you're like, wait, why is a size 8 bigger than a size 14? Why is,
Yeah.
I think the lingo was really, really hard to kind of, but also the reading water lingo. So like, that's an eddy, that's a seam, that's a run, that's a
riffle,
or a
pool,
like all those things. It's like, what does that even mean? So I do think the lingo is tricky, especially if you walk into a fly shop and they start talking to you like you've been fishing for 20 years and you're like, dude, I have a $25 rod. Like, you got to dumb this down for me. Like,
we need that on a t-shirt, dude. I have a $25 rod.
Seriously. But I would say that was probably the most confusing. But as far as like the nuts and bolts of like being out on the water, the reading water was really hard. Yeah. To start out for sure.
Sweet. Well, that's the rapid fire Q&A round. So you can take a breath. Okay. No more big dollar questions coming your way. But I want to end with 2 more questions for you. And I think we'll probably follow the same format for the rest of these everyday angler shows. But if you had the opportunity to do your dream trip for any species or going to any place on a fly rod, what would it be?
So I have a couple that I'm really interested in.
Okay.
I don't know a ton about, I'm still in the stage where I'm like, I want to fish as many places in Utah as I can. Right. Yeah. But I've seen the fishing for Dorado in South America, I believe.
Yeah. Argentina and Bolivia. Big places for it.
And I speak Spanish as well. So I think that'd be really fun to go down to Argentina, fish for Dorado. And then I like the wild side of that of like, I've seen there's a lot of like camping and hiking and stuff involved.
Which just out in the jungle.
I think it'd be amazing. I
hoping you survive.
Cool. Yeah. And then the other one though, that I think would be really fun for a trip, like for my wife and I that we could go on, would be to go to Iceland. Yeah. And I've seen there's huge browns over there. There's some cool, like the Arctic char are really cool. And that would be something that I think my wife would want to try fishing out there too. And then that's kind of been one, like a dream destination that we've had just as a couple for a while. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really good. Favorite fish that you've ever caught? We'll end with this one.
Oh man. I've just caught so many fish, man.
That's the correct answer.
There's too many to count. There's too many to... No, honestly, the one that comes to mind is, I shared this when I entered the drawing. Mm-hmm. I was first getting into... Well, I was mostly nymphing, right? I was kind of experimenting with nymphing. I felt fairly confident with just indicator nymphing.
Yeah.
And I fished this I actually had fished this stretch of water that I'd fished before and had a phenomenal day. Like, it was one of my best days out and I was just so pumped. And on my way home, I passed this spot and I was like, oh man, there's a big brown in there. Like, I was just convinced. And so I pulled over, nymphed through it, put split shot on, changed flies. Like, I was seriously at this hole for like 2 hours.
Okay.
And this is one of the reasons why it's my favorite fish, but I'll get into that. So nymphed through it. And then I opened my streamer box. And, I had like 6 streamers because and I'm still not like a huge streamer guy. It's fun, but it's not really my go-to. Tie on a streamer, chuck it across, slow strip it in, let it swing, just kind of messing around with streamers. Literally went through all my streamers that I had. Last one, I was like, all right, this is the ticket. There's gotta be a big brown at the bottom of this run or the bottom of this hole. Tie it on, cast out there, throw on more split shot. Like, it was just ridiculous. Anyway, so last cast, I cast out there, start stripping it in, and I just see this big shadow move from across the river. There's kind of this cliff, and it moved towards my fly. And in my inside, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a huge fish. And it just came out and it just slammed the streamer. And I assumed it was this big brown. And so I set the hook, and it just launches itself out of the water. And it's just this gorgeous rainbow.
Oh, wow.
And I was shocked that there was a rainbow that size. And I was just shocked that there was a rainbow. Anyway, so I fought this thing, got it into the net. My wife had just bought me like a new net, and the basket was it's like 19 inches long. And the fish like filled it this way and this way. And I was like, that is a tank. And so it was just like this most like, and so I, snapped a picture of it in the water and released it, and I watched it just, and when they get big enough, it's more of like it's almost like they have a paddle. Their tail doesn't really look like a tail. It's like a paddle.
It's huge. Yeah.
Right. And I watched it swim away, and I just sat on the bank for another like 30 minutes, and I was just like, that was amazing.
That's awesome.
And I think the biggest thing from that is that I worked so hard for it.
Yeah.
And that I trusted my instincts that there was a fish in there. And I went through all my progressions, right? Like I messed with flies, I messed with depth, I messed with all these different things, and it paid off. And it was just like this rewarding, like, man, I just caught that fish.
That's awesome.
It was cool.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you. I love it, man. Thank you. Well, that does it for us in this episode. I hope you enjoyed being here.
Yeah, it was a blast.
Hope you enjoyed doing the show before Alex did, in the new studio.
I know.
And I hope everybody watching or listening enjoyed it as well. If you guys like these kind of conversations, you want to see more of these, definitely let us know. Drop a comment. Let us know in school. I think this was an absolute home run. So I think we're going to do at least a couple more of these.
Awesome.
So, but I really appreciate you taking the time, man. And anything you want to say to the people before we wrap it up? Any parting wisdom?
Am I allowed to say live real life?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you could say it.
No, just get out there, guys. Like, just have fun. Fishing should be fun. Like I said, if it's not fun, find something else.
Yeah, agreed.
But no, just keep learning, explore, get out there, live real life.
Awesome. Well, with that, folks, just make sure you rate and subscribe to this show wherever you're listening to it, because the more of that we get, the more we can help y'all live real life, which is the whole goal of what we do here at VFC. And just tell everybody else you know about the show as well. And until next time, everybody, get out of the water and enjoy yourselves, and we'll see you on the next one.